Today we are going to be adding some darker color to our aluminum, or not, no, yes, sorry, aluminum with our sculpture that we have here. And we are actually going to be using some acrylic paint for this instead of ink. What you're going to do is you're going to take the paint and you're just going to add a little bit um, to your design here. You do want to make sure that you have the top facing forward, and you want to double check and make sure that you have your name on the back. And I did have my name on the back, but I accidentally kind of rubbed it off while I was working on this. So I'm going to go ahead and write my name on here really quick. All right, now you can see my name. I'm going to flip this over here. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of this black paint. And I'm just putting just kind of a little bit to get started with. Okay, so this is not very much at all. I can always come back and add in some more as needed. Okay, and then I'm going to take a brush, and I'm not going to use a lot of water for this. I am going to make sure I wash my brush out really well afterwards, but I'm going to make sure that I don't have a lot of water because I don't want to get the design here, the foil, like too runny with the paint. Okay, so I'm just taking this and I'm brushing and kind of covering the whole design here. And I'm getting in all of the little grooves. It's important to make sure that you have your sleeves rolled up because this is permanent paint, as you guys know. But I want to make sure that I'm doing this pretty quickly because I don't want the paint to dry on me. I want to be able to get this done in one sitting. Okay, so I'm kind of painting in all different directions to make sure I get all of those grooves filled in with paint. Like so. And I do have a piece of paper here to kind of save the table underneath, just to make it a little bit easier. And it looks like my brush is starting to kind of dry out from that paint, so I'm going to get a little bit more, add a little bit more paint to my foil here, just a little bit. And then I'm going to go through and finish. Now you want to make sure that you are getting in those grooves because it won't magically get in there on its own. You got to kind of work it in. Okay, so I've got all of the corners there. Okay, I think I've got most of that. Awesome. Okay, now I'm going to set my brush aside and I'm going to work on this next step here. Okay, I'm going to take a paper towel from the back sink. I'm going to kind of wad it up a little bit like this. And then I'm going to find a spot that I can put my finger to kind of hold it down. I'm going to start wiping off the extra paint. Okay, and again, remember this is acrylic, so it is permanent if it gets onto your clothing. So you're going to be very careful. And I'm not pressing down very hard. Okay, I'm just kind of lightly coasting over it. If I press on too hard, I might accidentally take some of the paint out of the grooves that I really want to be filled in. So I'm kind of just focusing on a soft, light pressure. So I've used this a couple times and I folded it over. I'm gonna throw this in the trash and grab another paper towel. Okay, and then same thing. Now I can use a little bit more pressure on some of the spots that I really want to show up a little bit lighter. Okay. For example, my paint is starting to dry just a little bit in some areas. So I'm using a little bit more pressure to take off the paint in the areas that I want to show up nice and silver. The cool thing about this is that it makes your aluminum look like an aged silver, which gives it a lot of depth and dimension. Okay, so I'm going to work on this a little bit more and I will come back in so you can see the final results. Okay, so here's what it looks like so far. I do want to point out that it does dry a little bit on the quicker side, so you might work in sections as opposed to doing the full thing at one time. If you find that some of your sections got a little lighter than you intended to, like I lost some of my paint coloring in here, it's hard to see on the camera, but in real life you can see it. So what you can do is after you've kind of gotten off what you want here, you can go back in with a little bit more paint, just a little bit, and kind of paint over some of those sections. Right, so for example, I want a little bit more depth over here because I accidentally took a little bit more off than needed. Okay, and then I can go through, and I'm going to go just a little more carefully. And for this one, I'm kind of going in the direction of my little lines, and I want it to show up as silver. Just like that. Okay, so that's a little bit closer to what I was going for. Okay, so you can kind of work through that way. It might take you a day or two before you have it all the way done, but you can kind of go back and add as needed a little bit more. Okay, you just don't want to go super, super crazy with it. Okay, and so that is the last step.